My wife, Lisa, put me in a situation I never thought I would find myself in, drugged and left to sleep while she entertained 3 men at a party. The aftermath was shocking. I ended up in the hospital, and one of those men got her pregnant. I never imagined that a simple DNA test could turn my life upside down. When I opened the envelope, I felt my heart stop. The revelations that came to light were devastating, shattering everything I believed in and revealing a cruel lie I could never have imagined. Everything began to unravel when my 15-year-old daughter, Mia, received one of those DNA kits as a Christmas gift. I can't even recall who gave it to her. She was so excited, carefully filling out all the requirements and sending it off. 6 weeks later, the results finally arrived, and she was not pleased. Lisa and I were sitting quietly in the living room, engrossed in our books, when our daughter decided to vocalize her dissatisfaction. We couldn't quite grasp what she was saying, but it didn't sound good. After about 15 minutes, she stormed out of her room and announced she was going to her friend's house. Lisa reminded her to be back in time for dinner as she hurried out the door. I had an amused smile on my face, but I noticed that Lisa seemed a bit more worried. We shrugged it off and returned to our reading. Lisa and I got married 18 years ago, shortly after I completed my residency. After 5 years, I was recognized as the leading gallbladder surgeon in a 3-county area. I had all the work I could handle, and life was good. Then everything fell apart. We were attending a social event hosted by Lisa's company, Crestview Enterprises, when I experienced a sort of seizure that left me with neurological tics similar to Parkinson's. It wasn't Parkinson's, but it looked similar. I developed a constant twitch in my right eye, and my lower right arm would spasm at the most inconvenient times. They never figured out exactly what it was, and for some reason, I was so grateful to still be functional that I didn't bother to investigate further. My days as a surgeon were over, but I found a new position as a radiologist. 9 months later, Mia was born. Things seemed to go as well as could be expected. I wasn't happy with my new condition, but I was still fully functional in many areas. I did a good job in my new medical role, and the pay was still adequate. My domestic and intimate life didn't suffer. In fact, Lisa seemed a bit more attentive, almost like the perfect submissive wife in the style of a classic film. I thought she felt guilty because I had the seizure at one of her company's events. Either way, I enjoyed the extra attention, so I didn't complain. I truly loved that woman. That evening, I turned to Lisa and asked, "Any idea why Mia got so upset about the ancestry test?" "I have no idea. I think it's best we let this go." "I'm sure she'll get over it in a few days," Lisa replied. No matter what it was, something about the way she said it didn't sit right with me. I had a feeling she was trying to deflect without being obvious. I just smiled and nodded. That night, I could barely read because I was lost in my thoughts, reflecting on everything. I tried to relate Mia's behavior to anything else that might be happening, but nothing came to mind besides the usual family arguments. We were fine, no financial struggles, no problems in the bedroom, and definitely nothing that could be related to our daughter. The next day, I needed to see that DNA report. Lisa left for work at Crestview, and Mia went to school. I stayed home and found what I was looking for in the drawer of Lisa's desk in the office. Lisa's family is mostly Irish, and mine is primarily Scottish with a bit of German mixed in. It looked like Mia was 48% Eastern European. I had to laugh a bit at the poor quality of the report. As I continued reading, I noticed a list of close relatives. Of course, Lisa's name was right at the top, but my name was nowhere on the list. There were a few names from Lisa's family, but none from mine. I assumed that the only people who would show up on the list were those who had already done the DNA test. Lisa, Mia, and I did ours 5 years ago as part of an annual physical exam. Mine should have been there if Lisa's was. I started to get worried. Then I noticed a strange name very high on the list. Teresa Grant was 46% compatible. Who the hell was Teresa Grant? Dr. McKinley, it's John Tarot. Yes, John, good to hear your voice. Is everything okay? Yes, no problems. I couldn't remember ever meeting him before. Have you ever lived in Hen? I asked, which brought a slight grimace to his face. He shifted in his chair, trying to get comfortable. I worked for Crestview Enterprises about 15 years ago. I think we met at one of the company's events back then. I left Hen shortly after that. He seemed relieved to have said that, but still a bit uncomfortable. Did you know my wife, Lisa? It was a question disguised as a comment. He didn't respond, just nodded. Do you know why I'm here? Not exactly, but I have a pretty good idea. The few moments of silence that followed were stressful. Why did it take so long? I just found out. More silence. He let out a deep sigh. I was young, I had drunk too much, and got carried away in the moment. I know that's no excuse, and I know it was wrong. I think I felt more peer pressure than anything else. Lisa was one of the most fascinating women I've ever met. I knew she was married, but no one seemed to care at the time. Who was no one? He was still fidgeting a bit in his chair. The three of us were from the engineering department: Fred Springer, Clayton Mankey, and me. Lisa was being very friendly with all of us. We were having a great time. There were many suggestive remarks going around, and some of them started to get serious. Did anyone think of me? Lisa was always looking around to make sure you weren't nearby. As I recall, you were chatting with some of the older guys about golf. How did it all go off the rails? Fred was trying to convince Lisa to take a pill. She kept saying no. He was being quite insistent, and that's when everything went wrong. What does that mean? We were all drunk and turned on, including Lisa. Fred asked again, and she sighed and said, "Don't drug me, you idiots." Drug my husband. After a long pause, I looked at him. Say that again. She said, "Don't drug me, you idiots." Drug my husband. That simple sentence has haunted me for about 15 years. It was so cold and calculated that I couldn't believe it. What happened next? A few minutes later, Fred brought you a drink. You fell asleep in one of the armchairs, and we all went upstairs. When we came down an hour later, we found out what had happened to you. What do you mean by that? I asked. It seems you had a bad reaction to the drug Fred gave you, and they had to rush you to the hospital. Lisa didn't even know until after you were already gone. I didn't say anything. That Monday morning, I resigned from Crestview and moved back to Vesti. I got a new job, got married, and now I have 3 kids. I never returned to Hen. I never saw Lisa again. I've always regretted what happened and am sincerely sorry. I don't know what else I can say or do. I asked the waitress to bring a pitcher of coffee. Malcolm, have you ever taken one of those ancestry tests? No, but my daughter, Teresa, did a few years ago. Anyone else in your family? No, just her. She got it as a gift. Your daughter Teresa and my daughter Mia are half-sisters. I watched as Malcolm froze, not breathing. He finally blinked and let out a big sigh. I kept watching for a few moments until he began to cry, slowly shaking his head side to side. Are you okay? No, I'm not. The worst night of my life just got worse. I can't believe this is happening. This is going to ruin me and ruin my family. I've tried so hard to prevent something like this from happening again, and now it comes back to bite me. How could this get any worse? We sat in silence for several minutes. Malcolm, what happened to the other 2? Fred died in a highway crash on Shuke-T. Clayton is an alcoholic living in a church rectory in Fiston. I haven't seen him in years. Malcolm, I want to thank you for your time and honesty. I'm not looking for anything else, and I have no desire for revenge or retribution. Rest assured, I'm not going to come after you or expose anything. I'm glad to hear that, but there's another problem here. What about your, or should I say my daughter? What if she finds out and wants to have contact with me? What should I do? I don't. I have quite a bit of experience, I said, trying to keep the conversation light. Yes, I read all the X-rays, CT scans, MRIs, mammograms, and ultrasounds, and occasionally tea leaves. This made her laugh a bit. Have you always done this? No. I'm sure you noticed my eye twitch and the tremor in my right hand. Before my condition, I performed laparoscopic gallbladder surgery. Switching to radiology allowed me to keep working. What was your condition exactly? You know, I never really found out. There was a lot of discussion and conjecture, but never anything definitive. I felt like everyone was being evasive. I tried to push for clarity a few times and got frustrated, so I gave up. Enough small talk. I need to get back to work. I'm off at 6 p.m. I'll pick you up here, and we'll explore your first dining experience. You're working straight through, right? I smiled and nodded. Lena Durante was single. I didn't ask why, nor did I explore the subject further. After a month, I was comfortable enough with her to explain my marital status. The fact that I was still married didn't seem to bother her. 2 weeks later, she started spending the night at my apartment. Life was good. I had no contact with Lisa or Mia. My relationship with Lisa had grown colder and colder. Before I left, she kept trying to keep things on track. The problem was entirely on my side. She tried to get me to explain what was wrong, but I never did. Mia became completely withdrawn. I tried to maintain that relationship, but she shut me out. It got to the point where we barely spoke. She never explained the reason for her discontent with me. I didn't ask, but I think it was pretty obvious that it was linked to that damn DNA test. I didn't warn Lisa that I was leaving. I simply left a power of attorney to sell the house and took half of our savings. She had a good job and would have no trouble supporting herself and Mia. I was sure she'd end up selling the house. I also left my wedding ring, let her figure it out. Lisa never tried to look for me or contact me. If she knew where I was, I had no knowledge of it. John, I scheduled an appointment for you at 9 a.m. on Friday at my clinic. It's a routine thing, so don't get too excited about it. Lena was trying to be casual. This doesn't make sense, and you know it. What's going on? It's the eye thing, John. I just want to take a look at it. Don't you think I should see an ophthalmologist? Dr. Perez will be there. He's the best we have. We're not going to do anything, just take a look. Lena, I don't trust you. I can smell a lie from a mile away. Shut up, John. Be there at 9 a.m. Well, Dr. Perez wasn't there. However, there was an anesthesiologist, and before I knew it, I was out cold. When I regained consciousness, Lena was sitting on my bed, smiling at my obvious displeasure. You're mad at me, John? I wasn't in the mood to talk, so I just grunted at her. It didn't take long for me to understand what had happened. I no longer had the eye twitch or the hand tremor. I raised my right hand and watched it in amazement. It was completely steady. My hand immediately went to my head, and Lena started laughing as I searched for bandages. There were none. Laparoscopic, John. Of all people, you should have realized that. I gave her a dumbfounded look, as if to question her. Through the nose, you idiot, she laughed again. In the months that followed, I worked with the surgical department to get my recertification. I decided to stay in the radiology department and only assist with gallbladder surgeries when needed. Everyone was satisfied with the new arrangement. Lena and I moved in together, and things went very well for the next 2 years. I think she wanted to get married, but given the circumstances, she didn't push the issue. It was a hot summer afternoon, and I was sitting on the porch with a bottle of Lancer rose wine. John, you have a visitor. Lena paused for a moment. I'm going to the market for a while. She didn't wait for a response. Hello, John. It's been a long time. It had been almost 4 years since I last saw my wife. She still looked good but a little tired around the eyes. In silence for a few moments, we talked about the house, the weather, and her flight. Finally, I couldn't take it any longer. Lisa, why are you here? What do you want? I just wanted closure. I want to resolve things so we can move on. I need some answers, and I think you do too. You refused to talk before. I think I understand why. I just need about 30 minutes. You flew 15 hours to talk for 30 minutes? I needed to do this face to face. Okay, go ahead. After a year, I figured you weren't coming back. I sold the house and rented a small apartment for Mia and me. She placed a check on the table between us. This is a check for half the value of the house. I filed for divorce on grounds of abandonment. It took a year, but it's done and clean. You're free to do whatever you want now. She placed another document on the table. Mia is engaged and getting married in a few months. She asked me to give you this invitation. She hopes you can walk her down the aisle. She fully understands if you choose not to. She realizes her behavior was inappropriate in recent months and apologizes for it. The invitation joined the other papers. I wanted to thank you for the checks you've been sending monthly to Mia's college account. They've made a huge difference in our circumstances. I didn't expect that. Now finish what you started. You thought that coming here empty-handed was taking the high road? Was this to make me feel guilty for leaving and abandoning my wife and daughter? Sorry, but that doesn't fly. Why don't you tell me everything, including why you covered up the medical report? At that moment, Lena returned and realized what was happening. Damn it, John. What did you do? Nothing. We were just talking about the old days. Lisa broke down. Lena took her inside the house and laid her on the couch. She got a damp compress and some kind of pills, which she gave to Lisa. I stayed out of the way. I was the villain. How did that happen? I went to the kitchen and grabbed a beer. The wine wasn't working. John, why don't you let me talk to her? Maybe she won't get so upset. You must have been too direct. Is there anything specific you want me to ask? Yes, a few things. Some I already know the answers to, but I'd like to see if she confirms them. Others I just don't know. Ask for the names of the 3 guys she was intimate with that night. Did she see them again? Try to find out if there were other guys on other occasions, just out of curiosity. Ask why she covered up the medical report about my seizure. Ask why we didn't have more kids. Stop. Too much information. It's a bit heavy. I'll do my best. Why don't you go out on the porch and relax? Grab a few more beers. I fell asleep, and 2 hours later, Lena woke me up. I gave her a sedative. She's in the guest room for the rest of the night. Did anything productive come out of it? Once I started, I couldn't get her to stop. The only thing she remembers about the 3 guys is that one of them was named Fred. He was trying to get her to take some kind of drug, but she remembers that she kept refusing. She didn't admit to telling him to drug you. I don't think she ever will. As for the intimacy, she didn't say, but from the way she described it, it must have been pretty good. It seems like it was a one-time thing. I don't know why she did it, and I couldn't get any clues about other affairs. She never saw or heard from the guys again. She suspected one of them might be Mia's father, but she never investigated further. She was scared when Mia got the DNA test kit for Christmas, but she didn't know how to deal with it. She assumed you found out, and that's why you left. Wow, good summary. That covers a lot. She also asked why you no longer have the eye twitch or tremor. I explained to her that it was a simple fix and should have been done years ago, but the diagnosis was covered up for some reason. That triggered another crying episode, so I left her alone. She should sleep until morning. It's hard to believe, but I used to love that woman. I always thought a love like that would last forever, but it's not true. I fought for 15 years when I shouldn't have. All the attention and love she shared with me over the